The sky was restless. Clouds churned above the mountains, their dark masses twisting like living things. The heavens, once silent in their judgment, now seemed uncertain, as if even the gods themselves were watching, waiting, because Nezha had returned. He stood at the peak of Kunlun Mountain, the place of his rebirth, his wind-fire wheels humming beneath his feet, his fire-tipped spear pulsing with power. The lotus body granted to him by Tai Jinren was stronger than his old mortal form. His movements were lighter, his senses sharper, his very existence now something beyond human, beyond divine. And yet, his heart burned with something ancient and simple. Vengeance for the gods who had wronged him, for the father who had cast him aside, for the life that had been stolen from him. And now, as the heavens prepared to strike him down once again, he clenched his spear tighter. Let them come. The army of heaven descends. The first sign of the coming battle was the sound of the war drums. A deep, unrelenting rhythm that echoed through the sky like distant thunder. Then came the golden chariots, soaring war banners, and the gleaming celestial soldiers in their armor of pure light. They descended from the heavens like a great, shining storm. Led by the most feared general in all the immortal realms, Li Jing, Nezha's father, the man who had once called him son. Now, he was merely the commander of the army sent to destroy him. Nezha smirked bitterly. Figures. From the center of the formation, Li Jing's voice boomed across the battlefield. Nezha, he called, you should not have returned. Nezha spun his spear once, lazily resting it on his shoulder. Oh, you sure about that? I kind of like being back. You have defied the heavens once already, Li Jing continued, his expression unreadable. Do not force me to strike you down again. Nezha's laughter ripped through the air like a whip. Force you? Please. You were happy enough to kill me the first time. Li Jing hesitated, just for a fraction of a second. And in that moment, Nezha saw it. Doubt. It was buried beneath the layers of duty and obedience. But it was there, a flicker of something that almost looked like regret. But it was too late for regrets. Li Jing raised his hand. The heavens have judged you guilty. You are an enemy of the celestial order. He lowered his arm. Attack. The battle begins. The sky exploded with energy as the celestial army surged forward, golden spears and divine swords gleaming in the stormlight. Nezha grinned. Finally, he launched into motion, his wind-fire wheels igniting beneath him as he shot forward like a blazing comet. He met the first wave of soldiers head-on, spinning his spear in a blur of red and gold, cutting through their ranks with impossible speed. A warrior lunged at him. He ducked, spinning beneath the strike before slamming the back of his spear into the man's chest, sending him hurtling through the air. Another came at him with a flaming sword. Nezha caught the blade between his hands, heat surging against his palms, before twisting it out of his opponent's grip and snapping it in half. More came, dozens, hundreds, but Nezha was a storm. He darted between them, his sash whipping around like a living serpent, knocking soldiers aside. His spear dancing with every movement. He moved too fast, too fluidly, like the battle itself was just another game to him. And in a way, it was because Nezha had never feared gods or kings or fate itself. And he wasn't about to start now. The three immortals arrived. The battle raged on, but Nezha knew the true challenge had yet to come. And sure enough, from the heart of the celestial army, three figures descended from the clouds, their robes flowing like waves of silk. Their presence suffocating the battlefield. These were not ordinary soldiers. These were the three great immortals, beings of immense power, second only to the Jade Emperor himself. Each had been sent with one purpose, to end Nezha. The first was Mu Jia, his eldest brother, a warrior monk who had long since pledged his loyalty to the celestial courts. His staff crackled with divine energy, his eyes filled with sorrow. The second was Wei, who, the golden-armored general of the heavenly armies. his twin swords pulsing with raw power. And the third, Nezha's smirk faded slightly. The third was his father, Li Jing, his spear still for the first time in the battle. For all his strength, for all his defiance, there was still a part of him that had once wanted to be accepted. That part was smaller now, almost gone, but it was still there. Li Jing held his gaze. His voice was steady, but his grip on his sword was tight, almost hesitant. "Nezha," he said quietly. "Stand down." Nezha exhaled slowly. Then, without breaking eye contact, he raised his spear and pointed it directly at his father's heart. "Make me a father and son's final battle." Li Jing struck first. His blade came down like a falling star, the sheer force behind it splitting the sky itself. Nezha dodged at the last second, flipping backward, landing lightly on his windfire wheels before surging forward to counter. Spear met sword, strike met strike. It was not a battle of words or grudges anymore. It was a battle of power, will, and fate itself. Li Jing fought like a storm, his years of discipline and divine strength making every move precise and deadly. But Nezha fought like chaos itself. Every movement was unpredictable, every attack a blur of fire and speed, keeping Li Jing on the defensive. For the first time, Li Jing realized he could not win. He had fought demons, he had fought warlords, but he had never fought a god who had been wronged. And Nezha was a god now. With one final strike, Nezha's spear slammed into Li Jing's blade, shattering the weapon into 1,000 pieces. The general staggered back, his breath ragged, his hands shaking. Nezha stood before him, his spear still glowing with fire. But he did not strike again. Instead, he lowered his weapon. "Are we done?" he asked. His voice was tired. Li Jing stared at him, and then, slowly, he nodded. The battle was over. Nezha had won. A new legend begins. The celestial army retreated. The heavens did not strike Nezha down, and for the first time, he was free. No longer bound by fate, no longer controlled by the expectations of gods and mortals. He was Nezha, warrior of the Lotus Flame, and his story was only just beginning.